Right now, it is time to bring in Arthur Schwartz, the food maven. Arthur joins us on a Monday morning. We rebroadcast Arthur on the weekend and also during our noontime news hour this week. And it's always great to start talking about food right off the bat. Good morning there, Arthur.
Good morning, but the clouds have reached Brooklyn.
Yeah, because it's coming from the south, definitely.
And it's getting windy. So anyway, a good day to make chicken broth.
Oh, yeah.
Or call it chicken stock, or call it chicken soup. If you look this up, you're going to find a lot of definitions. It's all the same to me, pretty much. But the reason I'm saying this is I found myself this week feeling a need to stock the freezer with broth because very soon it's going to be so hot I am never going to want to make broth, and I do like to have it in the freezer for various reasons, even for its own sake. So I have already made a couple of quarts that are in the freezer, and I have very limited freezer space. My freezer gets ice cubes. By the way, I have just two small in the refrigerator freezers. And so one gets ice cubes and maybe a couple of boxes of frozen vegetables, and just in case. And the other one gets ice cream and ices and like that. And there's limited space, but I am willing to give it up for good chicken broth. If you go to the supermarket, I hear already people saying, but you can buy it in a box in the supermarket. It's not the same thing at all. And it's also very expensive. And it doesn't have to be expensive. So this is not my new method, but the method I've been using lately. First of all, the most important aspect of any chicken broth is the chicken. And you can indeed buy a reasonably good chicken for $1.99 a pound. And I look for a big. I don't even know what they call them anymore. They used to say roasting chickens, but I see nowadays they've taken that word off the label. I think maybe because not that many people roast the chicken. I don't know what they do with it, but it should be at least 5 pounds. I found one the other day that was nearly 6 pounds. That's an unusual one, but I bought it. And one chicken like that, and it should be a good chicken. I broke down and bought some Purdue recently, and I wasn't disappointed because I didn't expect much from it, but what I expected wasn't even there. So, not meaning flavor. So it should have some flavor, and that's why I say a larger chicken too, because it's a little older than the small. Yeah, I mean you could do 2-3 pound chickens, but try to find a really flavorful 3 pound chicken. In any case, you put the chicken. I usually do rinse it off and make sure that the cavity doesn't have any clinging innards because that just discolors the broth. So I wash it out. I put it in a big, big pot. I don't care how much water is going to be needed, but at least enough to cover the chicken. And I throw and then I put the light on high. And as the water at this point is coming to a simmer, I scrape up a couple of carrots, depends on the size, 2 or 3. Same with celery, 2 or 3 ribs of celery, depending on how big they are. And let's say a largish onion, which I cut into quarters but not all the way through so that it more or less stays together during the cooking. And I put a couple of cloves stuck into that onion, and I throw that in, and some salt, a couple teaspoons at least of what I use as coarse sea salt. So you bring that to a simmer, and when it starts simmering, when it starts getting really hot, it's not even going to be simmering yet, some stuff, which we call scum, comes to the surface, and you want to skim that off. I have the best skimmer, and I've used it for years. You may have heard the clinking. I just pulled it out. And besides it, it's ergonomic. Is that the word? It fits my hand very well. What it is a very, very fine strainer in a flat-ish skimmer surrounded by stainless steel. and the stainless is curved, so that when I put it in the pot, the curve of the skimmer fits along the edge of the pot, and and the scum does congregate at the edges of the pot, and I skim, and it usually takes a good 15-20 minutes of actual observing and skimming until the water gets clearish, and at that point I could add if I haven't added the vegetables, I would at this point, and I also add in maybe 10, 15 peppercorns, and that's it. And I let that cook at the barest simmer for 2 hours, at which point the chicken's going to be cooked. Now, I am I'm a very frugal cook. I don't want to waste this chicken meat. I mean, I could leave this in there for hours and hours, and that would be a different and better kind of broth. But I would not have any chicken to eat, and I just paid at least $10, $12 for the chicken. That's the main expense here, and I want to eat it. So, and if it's a good chicken, it should be good. After 2 hours of the slowest simmer, you will have very juicy meat, not too overcooked to use more. I take out the chicken, and I let the broth continue to simmer as I let the chicken cool enough so that I can handle it. I take off the skin, discard the skin. I take all the meat off the bones, save all the meat on the bones, and the dark meat in particular will be very, very juicy, and put all the bones back in the broth. And now you can simmer away for at least 2 more hours. That's why it's good. This is a good thing to do today on a rainy day. And at the end of the day, you'll not only have really good chicken to do something with, but you'll have really good broth to drink and some to put in the freezer. That a 6-pound chicken should result in at least, I would say, 2 quarts of chicken soup, chicken broth. I don't know, stock seems like such a chefy word. I think at home I just want to call it broth. And it's a good broth, and you can eat it the way it is, but I usually strain it in a fine strainer lined with a napkin that I use all the time for straining soup. It's sort of but a cheesecloth is good, of course, and you get all the if you let this settle, you would see there are solids in there, but it gets almost all the solids out. It gets all the solids out. And you should end up with a very clear golden broth, and delicious just like that. But usually I'm making it ahead, so I put it in the refrigerator, and after it's chilled, it has a lot of fat on the top. Or a little fat on the top, depends on the chicken. And that you can skim off with a spoon. And by the way, if you're really frugal, that's another a byproduct of this broth, is that you have this, what I call soup fat. My grandmother would call it soup fat. And we used to use soup fat to make matzo balls. But I'm not making many matzo balls these days. You can use it to saute onions, but remember that it's full of moisture. So when you put it in the pan and you heat it up, it's going to sputter, and you probably want to cook off some of the moisture before you put any onions in there. But it does have great flavor. Oh, another use for the soup fat was you made kasha, which is buckwheat groats. Do you like that, Marshall? Do you like buckwheat groats?
Yeah. I don't have it that much, but yeah.
I love it. I love it myself, and I don't make it often enough. And but if you have any soup fat, then you want to make buckwheat groats. Then you want to make kasha and dress it with a little of the soup fat.
How long can you?
Soup fat is terrific. I can hold on to soup fat in my refrigerator for a couple of weeks, and I freeze it. I freeze it for it lasts.
I use it.
Oh yeah, if you freeze it, I mean, it is handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I use it on potatoes.
Oh, divine.
So good.
Yes, so good. So anyway, now you have for your $10, $12, 6-pound bird, you now have 2 quarts of really good broth. By the way, I mean, if you cook it down with the bones for a few hours, and then you strain it and chill it, you will see that it's full of protein because it's gelatinous. Gelatin is a protein, so and it's very healthy. And I've been making so much of it because Bob, having had surgery and then a hospitalization with antibiotics, strong antibiotics, all within a month, his stomach was very tender. In fact, the last doctor he saw said, one of the reasons you're having problems with your stomach and your digestion is that you were so full of antibiotics, really strong ones, that really does destroy all the, not all probably, but a lot of your good bacteria in your system.
Honestly, waiting for doctors who lash out antibiotics to start encouraging people to take probiotics. I just
does take a probiotic.
Yeah, but it's not.
I question whether the pill probiotic that he takes, or that anybody takes for that matter, really works.
Biodoff 7 Plus
Because
biotics.
as soon as he started eating yogurt and chicken soup, he got better.
But it has.
They were both very, very curative.
Can I just interfere for a moment?
Yeah.
Yes, yogurt. Yes. Chicken soup. Most people don't take probiotics that are strong enough or good enough. And most people...
May be. Personally, I like kimchi as my probiotic.
That works. But
well, it works if you can stomach.
If you can stomach. We were both doing the same pun, right?
And actually, pickles, not the kind made in vinegar, but the the lacto fermentation. I'm not getting that right. Those kind, the naturally fermented ones, which is the kind my grandfather made, the kind that old guy Jewish guys made. Anyway, so the broth really is curative, and then you have all this chicken. You can make chicken salad. It's good chicken for chicken salad. If you're into such things, it's great chicken for like chicken a la king or any creamed chicken dish. You can make a casserole with it. There's a lot of things, as everybody knows, there's a lot of things you can do with cooked chicken meat. You can eat it just the way it is, and you can toss it in a salad. You're going to end up with a lot of chicken meat, a good chicken meat too. But I like to put the first dose, so to speak, of the chicken broth. I like to have it with chicken noodle soup with some of the chicken in it, and then it's a meal. And I buy the thin egg noodles. I like Pennsylvania Dutch. I'm sure there's some other brands, but truthfully, I haven't seen any other brands lately. Maybe they've cornered the market. But any noodle that you like goes in chicken soup. Could be a wide noodle too, but I happen to like the fine noodles. And fine, could be Italian egg pot. Could be just angel hair. One day I had no egg noodles in the house, and I used angel hair. That's what angel hair is for, as far as I'm concerned. And because I don't like such thin pasta with sauce on it as a dry pasta, I prefer spaghetti or other long pastas. But the angel hair it clumps together when it's got sauce on it. But it's divine in broth, and I break it up. Put it in the dish towel so that it doesn't break up into pieces all over the kitchen. Contains it. And break it up, and I cook it separately. I don't cook it in the broth. But speaking of cooking it in the broth, today, because I'm in the mood and because I got some really great lemons the other day, I'm going to make avgolemino, which also you could put the chicken meat in an avgolemino. Avgolemino is a Greek soup of chicken broth, and of course, the better the broth, the better the soup. With usually rice, but I'm going to make it today with orzo.
Oh, really? Okay.
Why not? I'm going to cook the orzo separately. If I'm in a hurry, I would cook the rice maybe in the broth, and of course it makes delicious rice as well as broth, but it cloudies up the broth. Anyway, it doesn't matter if it clouds up the broth in this case because The avgolemino itself is lemon and egg that you add after everything is all together, the hot broth, the hot orzo or rice, and you beat up, I would say for a quart of chicken broth, I'm going to use 2 eggs. Some recipes will tell you 2 egg yolks, but I don't like to waste the whites, and it's okay. So I beat up the 2 eggs very well mixed, and then you add, for the 2 eggs, you add about a cup of hot broth, adding it gradually so the eggs don't curdle. And then you could put the egg yolk or whole egg and broth mixture back into the pot, and then add your lemon juice, which for a quart of broth, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, maybe a little bit more, depending on how tart you want it. Of course, you've seasoned the broth with salt and pepper before all this. And that's it. And then you put it over a low heat, and as soon as it all thickens but doesn't boil, you've got your avgolemino, and it's a thickened rice and chicken soup, or orzo and chicken soup. You could even do noodles and chicken soup, too. And then if you want to make it a whole meal, you take some of your already cooked chicken and break it up and put it in the bowl. And I wouldn't heat the chicken again. I mean, this chicken is on the verge of
extinction.
You don't want to eat it already. So, although it should be pretty juicy, still, even after 2 hours at the slowest simmer, it'll still have juicy. By the way, it's starting to rain here, so it may get to you earlier than you think. And that's it. I'm stocking up on this. My kitchen will get so hot in a couple of weeks that I will never want to turn the stove on, much less make broth that takes several hours. Now, to get some inspiration for the day today, because I woke up sort of not knowing what I was going to talk about, since all I did was make broth this week, and use up the chicken resulting. I really am tired of chicken, I got to say today, but we have one more day of this. So I went online to get some inspiration. I just didn't know what to plug in there, so I just wrote June and food. And I came across a University of Nebraska website, big ag school, of course, that lists all the food days of the year. And it looks like every day of the year this is honoring some food. I mentioned last Monday that it was National Egg Day, and I did that because I just happened to know it. And this week, by the way, is Men's Health Week, apropos of Father's Day. I learned that on the University of Nebraska site. But it's also, today is Herb Day.
National
and
Herb
I'm sure
Day?
many of our listeners grow herbs. So today is the day to honor herbs. And so today was the day I thought, I read some years ago that there's an area just south of Pestum, which is where my cooking school used to be, and it's Ashea and Pishota, these 2 little towns, and there are a couple of other ones over there. These are the towns where Ansel Keys moved to. Ansel Keys being the American biochemist who, by the way, created K-rations for World War II. He, after the war, moved to southern Italy and observed the people and their eating habits and came up with the concept of the Mediterranean diet. Follow this diet, you'll live longer. Well, the people in Pishota Shea do indeed live to be very, very old. I mean, 100 is not unusual at all. And a few years ago, there was an article somewhere I read that part of the diet, that Mediterranean diet, a part that Ansel Keys didn't refer to or know about, is their consumption of herbs contributes to their longevity. In particular, the rosemary that they use there. Now, I know the cooking of this area, and I never thought of rosemary as being the prime herb. I think of oregano as being a prime herb down there, as it is in most of the South, and Sicily, and the oregano is not farmed but even if it was, it must benefit from the climate there. But it grows wild all over the place. And in fact, so anyway, I was curious about being it's National Herb Day, the association of herbs and longevity, and I did find an article, a scientific article, published by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, in case anybody's interested, NCBI, and it's on the biotechnology and health benefits and the antioxidant content of herbs. It ends up, oregano is way up there in the antioxidant category. Now, that said, the article warns that don't think you can eat an herb as a silver bullet for antioxidant protection, because we don't use herbs even probably if you used enormous quantity. But on a daily basis, a few herbs really does contribute, so says this article. By the way, it's a compilation of many scientific studies, so I thought it sounded pretty sound to me. I'm a layman, what do I know? But I think this has to be true, that the accumulation on a daily basis of using oregano, rosemary, thyme, these are all high antioxidant herbs. Dried, by the way, are more concentrated than fresh. And in fact, there was a comparison of fresh oregano and dried oregano. And of course, the dried oregano, just by virtue of being dried and concentrated, had a much higher antioxidant level than the fresh. Maybe people in the south of Italy instinctively know this, because I've never been at anybody's house, to any restaurant, never ate anybody's cooking in the south of Italy that contained fresh oregano. It's always dried oregano. And I don't even like fresh oregano a lot of the times because it has a medicinal quality to it. And cute story, but my friend Maurizio opened a restaurant, this is 30 years ago, in Manhattan, a Neapolitan restaurant. And his mother, who is a great, great cook and chef, actually, she's worked professionally in kitchens, she came to help in the restaurant, and she discovered fresh oregano. She'd never been to a store that sold fresh oregano, so she had to buy fresh oregano and see what she could do with it. And she did a clever thing with it. She took lamb chops and put fresh oregano and put them in a plastic bag with fresh oregano, and took the air out of the bag and let the chops sit in the bag surrounded by all this fresh oregano for a couple of days, and then she cooked the lamb. It was clever, and she got some oregano flavor in there, but she didn't actually serve the oregano itself. That was, I thought, the funny part. She didn't think eating those leaves would be pleasant. In any case, that's a good reason to use dried oregano. All these herbs aside, by the way, the number one antioxidant seasoning, I'm going to call it, is cloves. And the thing is with cloves is that if you do more than a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of clove,
your
it
kitchen
take
reeks.
over and
Yeah.
not taste very good. And a lot of people associate the flavor of clove with the dentist's office, as well they should, because dentists
What would you
numbs you.
season?
Pardon me?
I'm trying to think from a seasoning standpoint. Forget health. Like what cloves is not on my go-to list of
No, not at all.
grab for. Gee, that would make that taste better. So
No. Well, I do stick a couple of cloves in my onion that I put in the broth. I do think that.
yeah, but that's
something.
like a little
So,
frisson.
I don't. By the way, I don't put herbs in my chicken broth, except when I serve it. And of course, avgolemino, for instance, is great with dill. And Jewish-style chicken soup, if you're just having noodles and soup with chicken, dill also works very, very well. I'm sure tarragon is a good herb with chicken, but it does tend to take over. And a lot of people are turned off by the licorice quality of tarragon. So anyway, there we go. I'm going to make broth today. Actually, today I'm going to go to the big box store and buy big chickens and use my biggest stock pot, because this is probably going to be the last gasp for keeping the stove on all day.
This is going to be a big day. Big box, big chicken, big pot.
Big chicken, big
pot,
rain.
Big pappy.
Yeah, so rainy days are good for cooks.
Okay.
Especially if they're cooks who garden herbs, because you can't go out to the garden today.
Well, you can harvest now.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of harvesting, this is before the rains come. It would be a very good time to harvest.
Yep.
As a former herb gardener, I will tell you that the best flavor from herbs is when you pick them mid-morning before the sun gets to them.
You're absolutely right.
Let's hope you have sun.
Right now, yes.
All right.
All right.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy Men's Health Week.
And happy productive brothing.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, here on Robin Hood Radio. Of course, you can hear Arthur every Monday morning live and rebroadcast, of course, during the weekend and also during the week during the noontime hour. Also, 24 hours a day at robinhoodradio.com. Click on demand. Click on Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven. Underwriting support for Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, John Andrews Restaurant on the Hillsdale Road in South Egremont, 413-528-3467, and on the web, jarestaurant.com. Rubiners Cheesemongers and Grocers on Main Street in Great Barrington, 413-528-0488, rubiners.com. Hillsdale Home Chef with 2 beautiful teaching classes, and they've got classes to go in those cooking rooms. More information, 518-325-7000, hgshomechef.com.